Hello everyone, this is Silent Echo. I wanted to make a tutorial with me talking. I feel like that's going to be a little bit more helpful than my previous tutorials where I only am just making music without any explanation. I think it's easier for me to explain what I'm doing. And it's just easier for me to kind of fill in. I think you can only see certain parts of the process when you're just looking at it. You need to know maybe a little bit more information beyond just looking. Me explaining why I'm doing things, why I put down notes, how I'm thinking when I do it. That's very useful information. So yeah, I just want to make a song, something very simple, something easy, but also something that could totally be a real song. I don't think it's worth the time to make some fake, melody that's just not good, or to make a bad song. Because ultimately, if you're here, you're probably watching this with the goal of actually producing music. So I want to do that. I want to help you get there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the tempo of the project to 144 beats per minute. If you're producing hands up in Techno Trance, this is the BPM that is a good place to start. You can switch it up around a bit, but 144 in that neighborhood is the ideal. Next is I like to start by making the melody first. It's really the main idea of the song. So I think there are many different correct approaches to how to start a song, but for me personally, I like to start with a melody. If you don't have a good melody, then it's going to be very difficult to have a good song. But included with making that melody for the first time is choosing the lead sound for the melody. What I like to do is I like to go back and forth between choosing the actual synth, like the sound of the melody, and actually writing the melody. They need to go together. Certain sounds and certain melodies don't mix well. So I want to combine the feeling I get with the melody with the feeling I get from the sound of the synthesizer. So there's a bit of I guess it's an artistic process. So you have to be willing to adapt one to fit the other. So usually with lead sounds, I really like Silent. This is more of like a trancey synthesizer. You can definitely get some hands up sounds out of it, but I've always preferred using Silent for when I'm making trance music. But I might layer it up with a Nexus synthesizer later on. I'll show you what I mean. But let's start with, I'm just going to use this as a set of sounds, presets that I personally use a lot. And I'm going to use this. This is just a square lead, or not a square, a saw lead, and it's very, very simple. Right, so that's what it sounds like. So that's so what we're going to do ultimately is put the melody on this synthesizer. But while I play the synthesizer, I want to also have some bass notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a second synthesizer here. I'm going to also pull up something from maybe here. I just want to get some nice sounds. So yeah, we're going to use this synthesizer. So with these notes here, these are the bass notes. This is the root of the chord. If you're familiar with music theory, I'm going to try to use some terminology that might help you understand, but if you're not familiar with music theory, these are the bass notes, which basically mean that it's going to determine what notes are going to go in each section. So for each bar here, this is basically one chord, which means that there's a set of notes that are going to fit nicely and sound correct in this part. The same thing is true here, same thing is true here, and for the last, I'm doing this here. So what this means is that our melody needs to have certain notes at certain times. So the correct chords would be, if I'm just following this, I'm going to put this in an empty channel. It's not going to play any notes. So we have D, B flat or A sharp, F, and C. The chords are going to be this. And what determines this is the key and just general rules of music. I would strongly encourage, if you're considering seriously producing music, reading up on some music theory. But basically, simply put, this is a D minor chord, a B flat major chord, an F major chord, and a C major chord. The reason why I'm using these chords is because it is a very, 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 very popular chord progression for this type of music, for trance, techno trance, hands up, dream trance even. You can play around too. What you can do if you want, you can flip these last two and the first two. So basically have these play first in 1 and 2, and then in 3 and 4 you have these play. It gives it a nice, like, happier sound. If you really like people like DJ Splash or Boosters Inc., you can get that sound by just flipping the chords. But the same rules of how we write the melody are going to be the same. So now that I'm actually here, I'm going to use these as a guide. And these are just going to play as a bass note. It helps us hear how that chord sounds. It helps us hear the harmony a little bit better. I like to do this just so I can get a hint of what it might sound like when it's played as part of the full song. All right, and another thing we're going to do too is I'm going to take these and I'm going to drag these into channel. I'm just going to route them starting from this track. That's going to put them in at 1 and 2. I recommend mixing in here. Some people like to use these volume knobs. It's part of the channel rack. Not my favorite. The only time you would want to do that is if you have one that's just absurdly louder than the others. But you get much more fine tuning done in here. So... okay. Another thing I need to do is test. Okay. It's a bit sensitive, I think. I think now it's fine. Okay, I think that's better. And this is still way too sensitive. Test. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so that's nice. Another thing too that really helps with placing these notes is just experience. Play around a bit. It's trial and error, really. But, you know, so this sounds a bit generic in my opinion. I don't know, I might try to change it a bit. So I'm just playing around with the notes here. I really need something that leads nicely into this second part. So what I'm really thinking about is transitions from, I guess, different levels. So there's kind of this nice, like, it's settled in right here nicely. And then it's going to settle again nicely here. So I need to think how just to lead in nicely here. So I'm also playing around with note lengths here too. I just don't like how this goes down. I'm not the biggest fan of that. So, okay, so now that we've got this resolution here, so I think this sounds all right for what we're doing right now. What I want to do as I get down to here, right, this kind of has like a natural conclusion right here on this A part, but it needs to go back around to F, right, this F here, right? So what I need to do is I want to copy this exact same pattern of rhythm, but with different notes. So you're going to see, I'm basically just going to right now put down the exact same notes in terms of the rhythm. Yeah, so I don't know what those are going to be yet, but we're gonna work on that here in a second. Okay, so we're almost there now. What I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to copy this over once more. I think I can go ahead and delete these guide notes. All right. So in this second part, I copied it over. In this second part, I'm going to change those just a little bit, just enough to give it some variety. Okay, so I think that's fine. Last step I'm going to do, so I've created this whole melody in D minor, F major. What I want to do is I want to change that up a bit, because FL Studio, we have the luxury of just being able to transpose everything very easily. So what I want to do is I just want to kind of play around, because with certain synthesizers, there's kind of a tonal range that you want to aim for. And so what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the right balance of mid and high frequencies. If it's too high, obviously, if I put it like way up here, you'll hear it's a bit weird. Like, so that's too shrieky. This is not exactly what I want either. So what I'm looking for is a nice range that's going to sound cool for this. Okay. Sorry, I was just messing with the microphone a bit. But so you can hear as this goes. No, I might even drop this down a little bit lower. See how this sounds on A minor. Okay, so I actually really like that. That's kind of the tonal range that I want to go for. So what I want to do is, real quick, I'm just going to build out kind of the sound sets that I want. What I mean by that is I'm going to add in the different parts of the song that I think are going to sound good together. And then what I can do later is I'm going to separate them out into different patterns. So as a matter of fact, let me go ahead and start doing that. So this one here, and take this second silent, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. So now it's by itself. And what I can do, since it's already in a channel, is I want to just add a few things to this. Now, if you're not an expert with mixing and mastering, don't worry. I'm just going to do a few things, just don't worry too much. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some overdrive on it. This is a form of distortion. I'm going to turn it down. So it's boosting those mids. So I can turn down the highs a little bit. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a filter to it, which allows me to edit it. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on here as well. I've already added an equalizer. What I do is I just cut off these lower frequencies. You don't want this in these like melody synthesizers. Anything that's playing a melody, you generally don't want super low frequencies on. And then I've also added some Soundgoodizer. I feel like you can't have a hands up song without some of that. This is just a form of compression. It's just going to make it sound like, the term people like to use is like wet. In a way, basically, it just makes it sound like it has a lot of echo. It's going to make it sound like it is just a bit more like vibrant. And what I mean by it sounds like it has more echo is by compressing it, any built-in reverb or delay that's in the synthesizer is going to be kind of enhanced. It's going to be taken up in volume to meet the sound of the lead. So if you don't like that, if you think it's added too much, just a quick, I guess, piece of advice is Soundgoodizer. You might want to turn down reverb a little bit. As a matter of fact, I may do that even just a touch. Just I touch the dry wet knob. I'm going to pull it slightly in favor of the dry. Same thing with delay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play these alongside each other. So we already have a pretty good thing going on, right? But we need to add some more sounds. This isn't a song. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add like the next biggest component, I would say, to a hands up song. Pretty much all of my songs are going to have this sound in it. And I think it really just kind of gets you immediately towards the like the family of sounds that kind of make this genre so distinguishable, which is Nexus bells. There's some really nice bells presets in here. They're called hands up bells. You'll see them here, especially if I isolate them. So I think they're plucks. Yeah. Hands Up Bells 3 is my favorite, so it's a good place to start. So if we remember, this is in A minor now, so we'll need to work in A minor. If you aren't familiar with always working in the same key, you can always just work in the most familiar key to you, and go from there. So maybe I'll just do this in D minor, or I can do it in A minor. And what you want to do is you want to do some nice arpeggios. So remember those 3 notes that we had for each chord, right? Those are the 3 notes that made that chord. I'm essentially just going to mimic them, but I'm going to do this bell pattern. All right, this is oftentimes referred to as an arpeggio of sorts. And essentially what that means is you're just kind of cycling through the notes in order. So here's what I do: as I go up, and then I go back down, and then I'm going to hit the next note. Right. Of course, something we need to keep in mind is we're doing this each measure, not half measure. So I'll drag this here. I'm going to go ahead and repeat here. So this might be a little bit low for these bells. If we go up a little bit, I think it's going to be too high. Yeah, it's too high. So I'll stick here maybe. Go ahead and route these here. Something I want to do is I want to widen these out just a bit. It's going to fill out like these upper frequencies just a little bit more. So this is the stereo separation track. If you have headphones, you'll be able to hear the difference here. So I'm just going to widen them a bit. I'm also going to cut the lows on these. These do not need lows at all. Now you might wonder, if you're a beginner mixer, like why you want to cut lows on these things. And that's because basically any frequencies, like especially low frequencies, they're going to get in the way of other instruments that are playing. Like, for instance, that bass sound that we had going earlier, this one. You don't want the frequencies to clash in places where they don't need to. And these bells, realistically, when you hear them in the upper ranges. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to boost the upper ranges. So I want to get that nice plucky sound from them. And I might also add a sound goodizer to these, but this might be a bit too much. I tend to turn the sound goodizer down, actually. So the reason for that is because it can make, especially higher pitch stuff, very like hissy. And so these, which have kind of a hefty amount of white noise playing, will feel kind of a bit harsh. It's kind of, especially if you overprocess natural sounds, it can sound a bit odd sometimes. And the bells are, it's emulating a natural instrument. Yeah, so if you noticed just then, I turned down the reverb. As I said earlier, it can boost the reverb a bit too much, and so, for instance, it sounds a bit awkward. So I'm going to turn this down to like maybe 18. Actually, I want to low cut these too. So the low cut basically just means that it's not going to do reverb below a certain frequency. I'm not the biggest fan of Nexus's volume, their like dials or their the knobs on Nexus, because they go from 0 to 127, which means that it's really hard to actually know. This isn't a percent, for instance. This is, out of 128. So, for instance, 50 isn't halfway, 64 is halfway. So, yeah, something to keep in mind. But, okay. So I think we're going to play this alongside here. We might need to adjust the volume. We're going to listen to how it sounds. Yeah, so that sounds fine. I'm actually going to turn this down a little bit. So I actually changed the bells. Okay, so let's add a fruity limiter to, or a love filter to this. So allow me to do a cutoff. So what's nice to do in this type of music is you want to introduce the elements slowly. So from the beginning, you want to start with something simple and you want to build it up. So, because the beginning of a song is going to make a first impression on somebody. And so you want to slowly introduce the elements, because if you start playing from the very beginning, it's going to be overwhelming, the number of things going on at once. So start simple, build your way up in complexity, introduce elements slowly. Then, at the end of the song, of course, you pull off, you back off. So usually that involves some sort of an outro or whatever. But right now we're just thinking about the beginning of a song. So let's hear how this sounds. I've just basically put two like ramps in terms of like cutoff ramps. Which basically means that we're going to slowly introduce the elements. So the first thing that's going to come in, you're going to hear a ramp going in the going up for the bass. So it'll start off, you'll pretty much only hear the bells. The bass will come in, it's a low pass cutoff filter, which means that it only allows low frequencies when it's all the way down, and then as you open it up, it continues to allow higher and higher frequencies. Same thing's the case for the lead. It's going to do the same thing. Okay, so this is already kind of like the intro to a song. Before we add anything else, what I want to do is I want to think about from a composition perspective what we need to have happen. So this is the beginning of a song. We have 3 instruments going. The next step is going to be for the drop, right? Right now this is just purely melodic. There's no drums, there's nothing. And you know, if you think in your head what the drop of one of these songs sounds like, you know, you have a hard kick, you have a hard bass, and right now these are a bit softer in terms of sound. So how do we get from where we're at now to there? There's going to need to be a transition, and it's not exciting to just simply have this turn into the next thing. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to take this sound here, and I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to basically, from a composition perspective, I'm going to make that transition happen. I'm going to do it melodically, which means that I'm not going to do anything weird with effects or anything else. I'm just going to try to do it purely with the synth and with this like lead synthesizer. I'm going to do it by playing just a few notes. So let's listen to how I do that. Okay, so that just kind of builds up some momentum, and it's going to transition. We could even, if we wanted to, get kind of interesting. It depends on your own personal preferences, but if you want to, you can do some very, like, almost like a snare roll in like terms of patterning. Almost like a snare roll, but with the rhythm in the synth. I think it could go either way. This is really down to personal preference. I like the other way a bit more, though. So we're going to do that. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to, I don't know if this is quite what we want in terms of the fade out. So what I might do is I might mess with this cutoff filter a bit. Now that might be a bit too intense, so what you can do is you can mess with the tension a little bit. Now see, that cuts off a bit too much. Something sounds a bit off. What's happening there? Oh, this is interesting. There's something wrong with the noise gate for the microphone. This is supposed to be else. Okay, I've messed up the noise gate for the microphone. Please excuse me. I don't normally have like a microphone on like this. But it should still, yeah, okay, it should still do the vocal ducking. Okay, so that transition now, we need a new bass coming in, and the definite, in my opinion, the definite synth for bass is Nexus. You notice a pattern here, a lot of Nexus, and that's because it's a synthesizer really built for this type of music. So let's hear the trance basses. These are always really good. I really like Trance Bass 8. I'm a bit of a sucker for it. It's really good. 8, 12, 13, 14, good. 5 is good. It's really useful to get used to the sounds of these synthesizers. Always, almost always, center your bass, which means to basically take the stereo separation and put it at 100%. If not 100, maybe like 80. But yeah, don't leave it wide. It's just not a good idea, in my opinion. Certain basses for different genres, maybe you want to keep wide, but yeah, bass needs to be centered. You don't want it coming out of only one ear. It's really problematic, especially if somebody's playing the music in like a car or something where there's going to be 2 subwoofers. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to use a special plugin here called Kickstart. This helps you. It's essentially like a sidechain, but instead of sidechaining it to a specific instrument, I'm just sidechaining it to a imaginary thing, which is defined by this waveform. So anything, basically, it's going to follow the volume of this waveform here. And what this is going to do is it kind of keeps it in its own pocket of like within the beat. Yes, this is pretty good. I'm going to move this down, and before we get to this here, I want to add some extra stuff to it. So I'm going to add this. This is a distortion plugin. This is Deadware. You can still find it online, but this is distortion. And the reason why I'm going to use this is because there's a particularly nice So what I do is I turn the mix level down, probably around 30%. If you have it all the way on, it sounds like overly distorted, so you want to distort just a small portion of that. I would not recommend doing that with Sound Goodizer though. You get some weird like interference. Okay, so let's see how this sounds together. So another thing too is with bass, sometimes it can be a bit too strong for this genre. So I'm gonna actually turn down the lower end of that bass. I don't want it to be too much. I actually want the lower mids right around 100 to stand out, but not so low. Not down here around 30 or 20 because it becomes a bit too overpowered by the subwoofer. This isn't super intense. Now if this was club music, maybe, but this type of trance music's not so clubby. Something else I want to do too is I want to try not to put this curve on the like in the middle of this lowest peak here. You'll see a peak right at this part. So I think that's better. Okay, so it's time to add some drums here and some effects. So we have all of our main instruments. I'm going to add some drums now. I'm going to use the Vengeance Essential Club Sounds for these. These have some great drums in them. So I'm listening for trance kicks. I'm looking for something that's rather punchy. This one's not bad. So something else I want to do here is I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with the bass. With this kick, when I route it, I want to immediately, probably actually further down, I want to run that exact same pattern on the kick, except now I might do it like this. So just these two. This is where having a lot of presets comes in. Being able to have a nice supply of drums to choose from really helps, because you can see here I'm going through a lot to try to get the right sound. The more you're limited, unless you have good limited sounds, if you're limited to just a few, it's going to really restrict your variety. Sometimes it's a good thing. I think too many samples can be a bad thing, especially when you're first getting started out. But later on, it really gives you the variety that you want when you're selecting good sounds. Okay, this is pretty much there. I like this one a lot. So I might even add a second kickstart just to really lock this in, that that zone that we're seeing. I'm really going crazy with the kickstarts, but I really do really like that. It's a great plugin. Okay, that sounds pretty nice. Now let's hear it with the full, with everything. Now you'll notice it is missing a few things. It's because right now we only have the kick and bass going, and that's really not enough for most songs. So I'm going to add some extra stuff. So what we need, generally speaking, we need to add some extra drums. We need a ride cymbal, which plays alongside the kick. It fills out the upper frequencies. We need a snare. That's going to be kind of the second major driver of the rhythm. We need a clap. That's going to go on the off beats to kind of give some variety. It's not going to sound so like monotonous. We need cymbals. That's going to help enhance the rhythm, and that'll come in at the same time the bells do. We need a crash cymbal. That's really going to help drive like even more energy into the downbeats, specifically major downbeats like what we have here at 31 and 39. So let me start with the crash, because in my opinion, for this genre of music, I think the crash is probably the second most important after the kick. So with the crash, I actually already know I almost always use the same crash cymbal. There's kind of a very specific type of crash cymbal that you want for this genre of music. Yeah, it's this one. So that goes on the downbeats. What I'm actually going to do, this is a bit confusing maybe for people who are not super familiar with how to use effects properly, or specifically how to process samples like with effects. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here, and then I'm going to duplicate this. So I guess I'll just do this here. I'm going to clone. Where is that? Why can't I find it? Oh yeah, make unique. So I have a second one now, and so this crash cymbal here, number 2, I'm going to route this to here. And so what I'll do is I'm going to call one of these crash with FX, and the other one I'm just going to say crash no FX. So the reason why I have 2 of these is because one of them I want to add a delay on. Now the reason for this is delay on crash cymbals is going to make them sound a bit more impactful. So you'll hear. Compared to just. Okay. So that really already helps. You'll hear again here. So that's really nice, right? I really like crash cymbals. Now what you can do to make this sound even more impactful, by the way, is you can take this out. So you'll notice what I did there is I'm just going to get the downbeat, this last downbeat in here, but then the 2, 3, and 4 beats within this measure, I'm taking them out. So that makes it sound really nice. Another thing too is I might put one here at the beginning of the next. Sounds pretty nice, right? So we'll go ahead and do that here and here. So that's pretty nice. So actually these, I thought these were going to sound a little bit better, but I don't think they are actually sounding very good. what I actually might do, okay, what I might do is I'm going to copy this delay. So the way you do that, by the way, quick FL Studio tip, save preset as, but when you click it, hold down and just drag and put it on top of the channel you want. So when I do that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn this down. So I should probably rename. The reason why I don't have like the full effects, or I've turned down since you created a copy with lesser effects here, is because I don't want to have too many of those delays overlapping. You'll notice, if you think about if I were to render this, it goes almost 4 measures before it's quiet again. And you know, so if you start stacking these up, you know, you can imagine there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or yeah, 5 different cymbals, and they're different tails of delay that are stacked on top of each other. So I want to try to minimize the overlap because that's going to get really ugly. And delete that too. Yeah, see, you really want to emphasize those downbeats, and the way you do that is by taking things away before them. There's many ways to do that. I can do that again here too, by the way. Yeah, so something else I'm going to do is I'm going to add some a ride cymbal. Now there's a specific one I like. It's here. I'm going to add this ride cymbal. And that's going to go along, I said this plays alongside the kick. The difference is that even when the kick is gone, I'm going to play it, with the few exceptions being right here. I'm not going to play it. So you can see here I've done a cunning thing, which is you notice if I don't cut the tail, there is a little bit of an overlap, right? I don't want that. So what I do is I cut the tail before they play again on each other. You'll hear how that sounds. Now, of course, that's really loud, so I'm going to take that down a bit. So I think that's a good mix right there. Sounds pretty nice. We need snare now. That's the next part I said. The snare will go right here. It's going to be a snare roll going in. Sometimes you don't need the snare. I know that might be like crazy to say. I think a lot of people will strike me down right now if I say that you don't need a snare, but sometimes you just don't need a snare all the time. But we're going to try it here. I want to see how it sounds. If it doesn't sound good, then you take it out. There's no hard set rules. But generally speaking, there are conventions that you want to follow. a pretty good one. Let's see how this looks. Okay, that's fine. So another thing that's really hard to get good at is snare rolls. So let's talk about that here. This sounds a bit odd. Yeah, see some of these snares, you need to find a snare that goes well with the ride and with the kick. And that's hard to do, which is why sometimes if the kick and the ride between the two of them, they kind of bridge the gap between the low and the high frequencies, adding a snare is just going to sound a bit messy. This is almost there. Maybe I can mess with the, I don't want to take off all the lows. That's a bad idea. Maybe I can mess with these a bit. It's just not right. I also need something that has the right amount of like release time. Something that kind of reverberates for just a little bit, but not too long. So like this might be a bit too long. Okay, so this maybe actually is not so bad. If I bring down this a little. It's just a little bit. Okay, there's some tricky stuff we can do here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use kickstart. Let's just confirm that this sounds right first. Okay, so that might be a bit too intense. Okay, so I think that's the snare that we want. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'm going to render this snare, actually. Let's be careful here. There we go. This is a good lesson in rendering snare. So what I'll do is I'll export this as a WAV file, and I'll do it in data, patches, packs. I'll do it in hands up. Do I have a folder for myself? Where would I put this? I'll put it in, no, it's too many things. Drums, snare. Oh, I see I've put some stuff here before. Let's do that. Let's do snare, silent, echo. Okay, so we export that as a WAV file, very important. Okay, I think we should have just only exported that. Okay, sounds good. Now let's grab the snare. Hands up, it's under Rob Maith. I'm gonna pretend to be Rob Maith, I suppose, with my drums. Snare. Okay, yeah, so let's put that there. That might be a bit quiet. We'll have to normalize it, which is a fault of mine, but it'll be okay for the tutorial. In theory, you want to get that as acceptably loud as possible. So we'll put that in a new channel. Let's see how this sounds. So that's actually fine. Okay, so let's talk about the snare roll here. Immediately you want to do this. Let's just mute these things. Okay, and this last thing here, I want to drag them all to be this length. And this one, I'll make them even shorter, like this. Now, you'll notice I'm doing this cutting here. I'm not letting them overlap. Partially for the reason I was talking about earlier, also because you get a much more like mechanical sound. It sounds electronic, and keep in mind that's something you do want actually. So yeah, and actually, there are a few ways we could do this. We could do this that way and drag them up, but I think it'll be fine to do this way. There's a few ways of doing this, but I'll do it this way for today. It depends on the specific sound that you want. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take that, drag it like that. This last one gets cut. You get cut. And you get cut. Yeah. Yeah, so what we can even do here is So something that's really cool to do with the snare is to put some saturation on it. And if this is too complicated, you don't have to worry about that. You don't need to do this. This is just going to make it fit into the mix a bit better. I'm not going to be talking about mixing or mastering, or like mastering specifically today, but just for now I'm going to put a slight compression on this. Okay, so we're almost there, almost there. We're going to add a few more effects. We need to finish putting the drums on first. So we were missing one drum, specifically the clap. Once again, with claps, specific sound you kind of want. I even have some folders here. Let's see how this sounds. Now the claps will go on the off beat, so basically not the down beats, minus these. So we're going to put a little bit of reverb on this clap. It's going to make it sound nice and wet, because right now it stands out a bit too much from the mix. So just help it fit in just a little bit with a bit of reverb. Where is reverb? There it is. So let's isolate it for a second. Actually, let's do that. Okay, there we go. I think I'm happy with that. Okay, now we're missing one thing, which is I want to take this and I'm going to add another layer. So you can feel that there's just not quite the delivery we want at 39. Right, so what we can do is we can help it. Now what I'm going to do is I'll add another silenth. And this time I'm going to load, let's go with this bank here. And I want to add a nice, let's make sure that this sounds good. So not quite. Let's try to load another bank. This has some stuff in it that it might be good. Yes, that's not bad. So what I'll do is I'm going to take the last bar of this, and while this is kind of waiting to come in, while this drops down, I'm going to pull this in with a Fruity Love filter. There it is. So I'm going to put a low pass on it. See right here. Make an automation clip. It's going to come in like that. Let's see how this sounds. Yeah, so that's nice. That's really nice. That's what I like to hear. Okay, the last thing is maybe this. Okay, so something that we want to do lastly, as far as like mix goes. I want to put these, so this is, remember, this is lead 1 and this is lead 2. I want to take these and I want to put them on a side chain to this track. What allows me to do is this basically puts them together in like kind of like the same mixer channel. I'm going to take them away from the master with this knob, put them here. This is connected to the master. So basically they're going to both pass through here before they go to the master. What I want to do with this is I want to use a fruity limiter, and I want to compress these as a side chain to, remember this is the kick and that's on channel 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to channel 5. This will basically feed in that signal to here. And basically side chains then. Nice. So lastly, I'm going to add some cymbals. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to find a nice cymbals pattern from one of these. So hi-hat and percussion. I'm going to find something that sounds nice. Need to make sure I adjust it to the time. This is 2 bars. This is almost there. What I might actually do is I might rip the cymbal off of this. So you see this part here, I think I can rip that off and just stick it there. Is that gonna sound weird? Yeah, so that actually sounds all right. This is going to be really interesting. Maybe I can get away with even doing this. Where would that fit? That fits on to here? No, there. Does that sound fine? What does this sound like? Wow, okay. Don't try that at home. This is really interesting. Oh, we need to put it on both. Okay, we've basically made our own path. Actually, no, I bet you this is even better if I just take the end. I'm really concerned about the... Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm really concerned if I just take that part is going to sound weird. That's probably better. Okay. Like I said, this is probably not recommended the way I'm doing this. As a matter of fact, because this is Vengeance, this is probably its own hi-hat sample somewhere in the pack. But I'm lazy. And this will sound fine. Nobody will be able to hear the difference. I wouldn't recommend doing this though. Find a hi-hat sample that's either like completely isolated, or find one that's part of a loop. But because I'm limited on time and this sounds pretty nice, I'm just going to roll with it. Okay, so the only thing we're missing now is just a few effects. So let's go and like add these in. So the first thing I want at the beginning, I want something that really just boom, like big downbeat. So what you want for that is if you have these VEC packs, FX kicks. Okay, so I want to, once you establish kind of a pattern of sound, you want to try to keep that going. So I think I'm going to do this. This might sound weird to cut it. We'll see how it sounds. Another one there. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I think what I might do is drop these. So this is where you really need to be good with like working with the effects here, because I think these are too loud through here. So what I can do is I can drop the sound of these. Okay, so we're getting there. I'm going to add some risers. I'm going to use some of the default ones from FL Studio. These actually aren't so bad, to be quite honest. Pretty good ones. So I can just add a few more risers. These kind of help fill in the sound and really like help push the song in certain directions. So for instance, I might add this melody sweep on the downbeat of both of these, and you'll hear the effect that that has. Add a thing for this. I don't want this to come in until the This might also be useful, for instance, here. I like these bells going down, and you're not going to have all these sounds, admittedly, at your disposal when you're first starting, but the goal is to just get these FX packs. And, you know, when you build up these effects, banks, then you can start using them more effectively. FL Studio comes with some by default, but you can get them, for instance, Vengeance, Essential Club Sounds. Those are available all over. You can get some from, there's so many out there. If you just look up like EDM FX packs, they're available for purchase. There are some free ones. They're everywhere. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm going to use some white noise effects that I have. These are basically just white noise sweeps. Maybe I'll use this one. Where's this one? let's use that. Right. Okay, so we're definitely getting there. One more that I want to add. I want to add something that's like really a bit shorter. I actually really like this effect. This one is from VEC2. I'm going to make these snares a little bit louder here. Just ramp them up like that, and then back down once you get to here. Nice. Okay, so I think we're pretty close to like the final end goal that we want. Yeah, so let's listen through. Okay, so to wrap this up now, because I wanted to essentially create the first verse of a song here, what I want to do is I want to finish this off, because this is actually not entirely how I would write a song. I wouldn't have it end here. I actually am going to have it go one further, set of like bars here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a variation on the melody. But we have all the elements, so this will be very quick. Actually, I need to. So I'm going to clone this. Go up here. So let's go ahead and just drag everything over one more time. We need these. We're going to need all the kick. We're going to need the crash. This time we're going to do the crash, kind of how we did it back here. I already know I want to do it like this, like that, kind of like how we did it there. But this time we're going to have everything drop out. Right again. There. Snare. We're actually going to do the snare roll like we did here. But this time it's going to end one bar earlier. Like that. I am moving rather quickly, I know. But once you get the hang of this, you can also move pretty quickly if you want. It's just kind of a thing of practice. The snare roll needs to peak there. Where else? What else do we need? Well, at the right. This. We want one more crash here. Make sure those are the two. I think I want to be that pattern. So this. Whoops. Let's hear it for a second. Okay, let's hear. What I want to do is I want to have a variation on the melody. So that sounds kind of nice, I guess, but I just want to make sure that that sounds good in the context of this, because it needs to naturally feel like a progression of the melody, progression of that theme. Okay, so that's pretty nice. That sounds pretty cool. The last thing I'm going to do here is so the last thing I'm going to do is we've kind of built up to this final ending. I'm going to show you quickly how to transition this if you wanted to into like a full song. So as you see, we've just gotten to this point. What would I do next? You need a midsection. So from here you would take out all the things except the major components, switch it to that. We also want the ride, but everything else can go away. So right. So we can even take some of these and I can play around with the idea for a second. We might even be best to just take this into a new pattern. Let's just do this real quick, and I'll show you a quick idea of like how you want to do these melodies for these midsections. How does this sound? Okay, so that sounds pretty cool. I thought this has portamento turned on. Should. Okay, and then yeah, we take it like all the way to the top there. Yeah, and then you can add like an extra texture. For instance, let's add a silent here. There's a really cool sound I like. It's like an acid sound. This sound. So what we do is we can take it up way up here. I'm gonna cut these a little short. So yeah, it's a bit hard to do these right, but they can sound cool if you do them right. Okay, so let's take this up to C, down to G. Yeah, so let's do that. See how it sounds here. And you can bring it back around to the main theme. So this is the general idea of creating a hands up, so this is more Techno Trance, a Techno Trance song. But a lot of these ideas can be used in hands up. It's very similar composition styles. There are some minute differences here and there, but this is really, I feel like, a pretty good introduction if you're trying to get into this genre of how to produce things like this. If you're looking for something a little bit more hands-uppy, there are some tutorials on my channel that make that genre. There's a remix that I have a beginning tutorial of Fest Hosmig. That is, if you take these concepts and what I've talked about today and look at that tutorial, you can kind of get an idea of how to start going about making something like that. But I think this hopefully has been very helpful. I've definitely improved a lot since I made those beginning tutorials. And I mean, I'm by no means perfect, but I think that I can speak with a little bit more authority on the topic of making this type of music now that I've certainly established myself. So I hope that if you like my music and if you think that I'm doing something that you want to emulate, hopefully this video will have shown you just a peek behind the curtain of like how my music is made. I'm certainly open to making more tutorials like this with a microphone if that's something people want to see. I'll certainly do my best also to answer any questions that people have, things that I did in the video that weren't clear. However, I'm certainly not a user's manual for FL Studio. If there were certain like things that I was doing, particularly with like buttons or shortcuts, or you're like, how were you cutting the things, I'm gonna avoid answering those types of questions. But specifically on the composition side of things, like, can you explain more on specifically why you did the bass that way or something like that, I will do my best to answer. And if there seems to be a lot of confusion, or if something wasn't clear, or if I didn't address a certain aspect of the music making, then please let me know. So I will certainly consider doing more videos like this in the future. But I think this is a good introduction and a good video for how to make Techno Trance in 2024. I think there's not a lot of people out there who are producing tutorials, especially for this type of music. So I understand it can be really frustrating for those people who are trying to get into it. So definitely let me know. I will get around to making more tutorials if this is something people want to see more of. So thank you for watching if you've gotten this far, by the way. I hope you've learned something. I had a lot of fun making this track today. So yeah, please make sure you give it a like and leave a comment. It's going to help my video reach more people. So yeah, until next time, thank you so much. Bye.